Teri Greeves. I'm Kiowa, enrolled Kiowa from Oklahoma. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I am a contemporary beadworker. So this particular piece that I'm doing is a clutch. It's going to be a lady's handbag with a magnetic clasp in the inside of it. And now what I'm doing is the design work on the outside of it. And this is my interpretation of Great Lakes florals. I loved Great Lakes florals for many years, but was never felt it appropriate for me to use them or to do them. And then eventually I got married to an Ottawa man, and I have 2 Ottawa children, so I figure I have some blood right to be able to do them. Although I know that any lady from up north would probably look at my florals and wonder what the heck I was doing. But this is my interpretation of it, certainly by setting stones in the center of them. I started beading when I was 8 years old. I grew up in my mother's trading post on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. We grew up on the Shoshone side of the reservation, and I had an adopted Shawnee aunt, Zedora Enos, who was working for my mother at the time, and she was a beadworker, and I'd asked her if she would show me how to do beadwork. And so when I was 8, she sat down with me one time in the trading post, and she showed me how to do a stitch called hump stitch, which is basically the stitch that's used on the legs of this guy. It's modified. And so the first thing that I made was a pair of baby moccasins, about the same size as these ones were, except for using that hump stitch pattern. A wise man, much wiser than I, once said that traditional, what is traditional? And he wanted to know, he was looking at, he had up a piece of, it was a war shirt it was a Lakota war shirt, and it had beadwork all over the outside of it, and he asked me, or asked us in the audience, was that traditional? And of course it looks very traditional to us, we recognize it as traditional. He said, well, the beads on it are not traditional. They're from Europe, and they didn't come to us until the Europeans arrived in North America. So what is traditional then? And how do you define what is traditional if through the ages we've adapted to new materials and techniques? Is nylon thread traditional? And it's really boils down to, it's not so much what we use or the materials that we use, what we do it on, it's the story that comes out. And so what is traditional? Well, traditional probably isn't a pair of tennis shoes, Converse tennis shoes, but the story that I've at least tried to attempt to tell in that story of the Kiowa odd days and how important they are to us as a society and as a culture, that is the traditional story. I hope that people take away from their experience at NMAI and certainly looking at the contemporary pieces that are here in the collection, and look at them in terms of the line that connects what the old pieces are that are considered traditional to what is now contemporary. That they see that that line passes through and will pass through into the future. That there is no break in that line, there is no authentic traditional or authentic contemporary. That back in the late 1800s, getting access to cotton thread was a big boon for the arts, and or at least for beadworking, and that adaptation to new materials, adaptation to new technologies is what has allowed us to survive into this century, right here and now.